Hey everybody, another reel to go through this week. This one has really took the fishing industry by storm, the SLX when it first came out. And then they dropped on us two more SLXs. They dropped on us an SLX DC, 150 size, and then they dropped on us the XT, which is probably one of my favorite reels for the money. Now they have an SLX MGL 70. So this is a 70 size MGL spool. So MGL spools are Magnum light spools. Shimano developed them to be lower in weight to create lower startup inertia. So it makes them better at casting really light baits like those wood hand-tuned crankbaits that you see, or really tiny micro cranks or small top waters. But even casting regular stuff, it makes it easier because when you cut the weight out of the spool, not a lot of the energy from the cast is used to get it to start up. It just goes really quickly. So that is what MGL is all about. When it comes to this reel, like the other SLXs, Hagane body, so that all metal body is in this reel. And the MGL spool, obviously, like we talked about, it's a super free spool. And the other thing it's got is cross carbon drag. So this reel is really going to handle a lot of stuff. With a cross carbon drag metal body, it's going to perform really well, but I want to see what the casting distance is like on these. When it comes to models, there's actually three models of the SLX 70 MGL in both left and right handed. There is a 6.3 to 1, a 7.2 to 1, and a 8.2 to 1. And when it comes to inches of line per handle turn, I think we're talking 25 inches on the 6.3, 29 inches on the 7.2, and 32 inches on the 8.2 to 1. So lots of variety, whether you're a flip punch or reaction bait guy, or you want to slow things down and go 25 inches for cranking or slow rolling swim baits and stuff like that. This little reel has you covered. So let's do some casting tests. I'm going to put a line counter on here. I've got this rigged on a Zodias 7'2" heavy. Not the ideal rod, but I think it'll do the point. And I'm casting a same bait I casted in the last video. It is a 3/8 ounce Jackal MC60 MR crankbait. So it's not super aerodynamic. It has no weight transfer. We're going to get to the root of the casting right away. One big thing about this reel is the fact that this frame is still a 150 size frame. It's the identical frame that you're going to get in the SLX, SLX XT, or SLX DC. The difference here is line capacity. 85 yards of 12-pound test, or 105 yards of 30-pound Power Pro, but it's the spool that is 70 size in this reel, not the frame. Okay, the spool, the MGL spool, has 70 size capacity. That's something you have to note. If you're expecting a smaller overall profile reel because this is called a 70, it is not. This is the same frame, it's a 150 frame, smaller line capacity on the spool, but it's a great casting reel. When you set up your bait caster, like always, you base it on the weight of the bait that you're casting. So I've got my spool tensioner cranked forward. I'm going to back that off until I get a little bit of speed out of the drop. And you can see the really cool SLX SVS Infinity Braking as another feature. I'm going to start it at number 4. Okay, so number 4 braking. I've got my spool tension set. I've got 12-pound fluorocarbon and a 3/8 ounce bait. Let's see how it does. Actually casts really well. You can see how much of my spool is gone. So let's flip this up and we'll see what the distance is. Coming in at, so that's on number 4, and we just did 102 feet. You can see right there, 102 feet. Actually really good casting distance considering the amount of pressure I had on it with the SVS Infinity. So I'm going to drop that down now. I'm going to slide that to number 3 and see how the casting distance is. Felt it immediately. I mean, it is longer. I'll guarantee you that cast is longer. I heard it. The spool speed was better. So what we're going to do is we're going to reset this, lock that in. And here comes the bait, dog chasing it. Okay, 119. Okay, so from 103 to 119, and that was simply by going from number 4 to number 3. Let's try number 2. Let's see how loose it's going to get. So I'm going to go right to number 2 on the SVS Infinity. It's looser. I felt the fluoro kind of blow up in my thumb, but no backlash. You're going to need a trained thumb for that one. So let's set this to 0. Put that in there. $121. Jazz, there's hooks on there. 121 feet. Okay, so every time you reduce the SVS Infinity Braking, like I explained the last time, it actually pushes the race down into, and I can show you this, how this SVS Infinity Braking actually works. If I flip this over, you can see this right here. This is called a race, this bronze or brass piece right here. And as you dial that number back and forth, it pushes that race down into the center of this piece right here. Now this one is set up with 2 brakes on, 3 brakes on actually. No, 2 brakes on, 2 brakes off. These brakes here, as that race pushes in, it forces them to stay in the upward position, which is the equivalent of being off. So when you push the race down, that's like going to number 2 or number 1, that's telling the braking system you want less help. So it forces it down, pins the arms up, and they move less. When you're casting into the wind or you're new at casting, you can dial this back to number 6, which is the maximum. It will retract the race out of the SVS Infinity Braking, allowing those paddles full mobility so that when your cast is at the height of its speed, they're going to flare out and give you control so that your spool never really gets going faster than your line. So that's SVS Infinity Braking in a nutshell. So my opinion on this one so far, great casting reel, even on a light bait. But I want to try something different and show you what happens when you remove SVS Infinity Braking paddles. So we're going to take one of these out. So right now I've got 2 on, 2 off. I'm going to close one more just by clicking it up. So you can see here, I've got 1 that's on, 3 that are off. I wouldn't even imagine casting this on the number 2 setting. So I'm going to bring it up to number 5 where I started. And my last cast was 121 feet. Let's see what the difference is here. Now I've got 1 paddle in the braking, in the VBS braking, and SVS Infinity on number 5. Okay, pretty easy to cast still. Let's clear this. So 121 is the mark we had when we were on number 2. 116. So even though I increased the SVS Infinity Braking quite a bit over my best cast, by removing 1 paddle in the VBS section, it increased the casting distance. So let's try going down to number 4 and see what happens. You can feel it's starting to get a little bit looser. You could tell. So let's see where we got. So 116 was the last cast. Reset. So 120. 120 feet. So basically, I would say to you guys, if you want the most control, because this does feel looser, set your brakes on the inside of the reel to 2 on, 2 off. And then settings from 2 to 4 are going to be perfect if you're casting into the wind or with the wind. That's the review of the SLX 70 MGL. Do me a favor, click subscribe if you can. That'll make sure that my videos get into your playlist. And yeah, we're going to keep doing this every week. So I hope everybody stays well, and we'll talk to you soon.